What up everyone, EJK here, and I'm going to be bringing you guys a analysis video on one of Flash's TvZs from his recent streaming. We're going to be taking a look at, what do I have in my notes? More of his attention to detail, in other words, what he tries to, my hand's right here, I'm using hand gestures and you guys can't see him, but what he focuses on most during his games, and some peculiar ways that he tends to take engagements, and we're also going to see how he multitasks when he's switching back and forth between the Banshee harass. So, without further ado, let the game begin. Oh, and I also found out that if you switch your YouTube player to FML, or I mean HTML5, you get the normal speed and you get like the 0.25 and everything. So this is going to be the first video we can actually slow things down. I mean, I think it's going to be very, very useful. And it's pretty cool. You can see Flash's multitasking done. You can see all the individual clicks as well. The first thing I want to note here is that it's as soon as Flash goes into the game here, actually I can just do this. As soon as Flash goes into the game here, what he does is he focuses on SCV stacking. He is doing very little spamming. Another SCV stacking, no spamming. Well, not no spamming. It's very, very little spamming. He starts to spam after his SCVs have been fully saturated at his main base. He hasn't binded any of his location keys either, which is kind of interesting to note. So Flash is focusing already. He's already starting off the game going hard, stacking all of his SCVs, and now he, like, the first time he moves his screen is actually when he places that depot down. And then he goes back to kind of stacking SCVs. Now, after these far mineral patches are stacked, the next thing to do, or the next goal in Flash's mind, is to get these mineral patches right here, all having one SCV on it. And then after that, he'll start stacking the far mineral patches as well. So he really, really tries hard to keep those minerals stacked, or those SCVs stacked on the minerals, is what I'm trying to say. Kind of getting tired a little bit, so hopefully I don't mess up on my words or anything. But yeah, see right there, he just stacked his SCVs on the far mineral patch while he's waiting to build his command center. And I think it does help as well. It definitely squeezes out a little bit more minerals so that he's going to be able to build his command center like maybe 5 seconds quicker, a little less than 5 probably. Probably closer around 3, but it does make a big difference in these high-level games. And now that all the SCVs are stacked, we see some boxing coming out of Flash's mouse right there. That was my mouse trying to imitate it. And there's another box. It really starts after he has all of his SCVs stacked, even at the far mineral patches. Now, I'm not really saying much right now because there really isn't much to say. Flash, he isn't really the type of spammer person. He doesn't go ham on his warm-up. From watching his game, or this game and all of his other games, really, he seems like a very calm player. He will speed up to do stuff when stuff needs to be done, but otherwise he can just sit there and do absolutely nothing. Or do absolutely nothing with his mouse and keyboard. But what he's really doing is just looking at the minimap. So whenever there's a lull in what's going on, he's going to be looking at the minimap. 100%. He is a very, very, very good minimap player. We see when Flash is kind of, what's it called, like cycling through these keys like the command center, the barracks, and the factory, one important thing that it does is that it allows him to glance over here and then quickly assess what needs to be built. So if he let's say he cycles between his barracks, or like that, he can see the SCVs that are about to be done, so he knows when to queue up the next SCVs. He knows when to drop his mules, when that little orbital or that command center thing turns into an orbital looking icon. And he knows when or the progress on stuff such as Marines building and that reactor on the barracks without actually visually looking at it. He can just look at the little bar over here. And that's how he that's how actually how I think I play as well, and I think a lot of people do. This is very useful for keeping track of your macro, and Flash uses it a lot. Notice how he just did that there. He was kind of like he accidentally put 2 SCVs on one command center, and he quickly changed that. And there we go again. He's fiddling with his macro, and he does that I believe a couple more times throughout the game as well. It's definitely easy to like be able to just have your multiple building selections selected and then just pretty much just fix your macro. It's one of the very good things about SC2 that we don't have to worry about, us Brood War players. Brood War macro is so much harder because you couldn't have multiple buildings hotkeyed. We see here, okay, so right here, Flash, he reacts to that Overlord. I'm going to speed it down a little bit so we can see exactly what's going on. But when that Overlord comes into vision, I can do this too, which is cool. But when that Overlord comes into vision, the thing that Flash is going to do, or no. The thing that Flash sees, or he sees the Overlord from the minimap. So he sees that the Overlord is coming in from this direction. He doesn't necessarily see it on the screen, but since he sees it on the minimap, that's all he needs to see. And it's cool to see that he also reacts to the Overlord coming in this way when I'm not quite there yet. My notes say 712. But it's coming up really soon, and I don't want to miss it, so I'm just going to leave it at 0.5 for now. So he sees the Overlord coming here, and we see in a little bit... Okay, so he sees the Overlord there. He's getting his Marines ready to kind of like attack it, and he is able to react to this Overlord before actually seeing it. He saw it on the minimap, he clicked it, he saw that it was moving towards that direction, and then he sent his Marines to intercept the Overlord, getting it killed as soon as possible. Oh, and while we're at 0.5 speed, I just want to explain a little bit Flash's build. I really like it for this kind of a map. It's very safe greedy, like it's very smart greedy because the map is Deadwing. The rush distance is a lot larger, so I guess he just cuts out the 5th and 6th Hellions in favor of getting his E-base faster, his 3rd command center faster, and his barracks is faster. And I guess he doesn't really need those Hellions as well. Notice how he only makes those 4 before lifting off that factory to make a reactor. And his 3rd command center is super fast for a Hellion Banshee with cloak opening. I just thought that was pretty cool adjustment that he made to his play to fit the map. So now I'm going to speed it up just a little bit until the Cloak Banshee harass comes in. That's going to be the next important part to look at, because there's some pretty interesting techniques that Flash uses to micro the Banshee, and then he switches back to his uses his multitasking and switches back to the main screen, and we're able to see his kind of like throwing down buildings and then switching back to the Banshee harass. Oh my god, I just completely missed it. It came... I'm not used to this ×1 speed. Okay, so Banshee is coming by. I wish there was a hotkey for this. It would make things so much easier, but now I have to like get ready to actually use it. And okay, the Banshee's coming across from the minimap. Now Flash, oh yeah, and Flash that was Flash just hotkeying his location keys for the 3rd base. Okay. He didn't hotkey that location until right before that command center was done. Just saying. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at his multitasking, the Banshee harass. It's really interesting to note, as soon as he right-clicks the drone and the Banshee fires, he clicks once, and it's just once. He doesn't spam click to make the Banshee more efficient in its turning. He just clicks once, and then he clicks, and then he targets a drone, and then he targets another drone. He clicks as soon as that drone is targeted, and then he clicks again after he fires, clicks. It's very, very cool to see at 0.25 speed at how fast he actually targets a drone, then right-clicks to the area in front of the Banshee to make it go. Now we see Flash here throwing down a bunch of buildings, and then he kind of uses the scrolling to get over here. And while he's scrolling, he also is able to take a look at the minimap as well. I noticed that a lot. Flash does, he does a lot of scrolling, and I think it's on purpose so that it gives him a little bit of extra time to look at either the minimap, his minerals, or the supply count. Taking a look at this Banshee harass a little bit more, notice how since he doesn't really have to go anywhere, he's not doing any additional clicks, but as soon as this Spore Crawler is almost ready and he has to get the hell out of there, he starts moving his Banshee away. So he doesn't use, literally up until that point, clicking twice over there to get the Banshee away, he didn't use any additional clicks that he had to use. They were pretty much one click per action to be 100% accurate and 100% precise, and to make his actions as efficient as possible. So that was the little bit of harassment part that he did in this game. The rest of it's going to be pretty straightforward. Right now we see Flash returning to a macro standpoint. He's going to be doing a little bit more harassment with that Banshee. I also find it very peculiar that his Viking, even though Flash is such a good minimap player, his Viking goes straight over here for this Overlord instead of those two Overlords that he clearly sees on the minimap and that have clearly been there for the past, I don't know, like 3 to 4 minutes, ever since he had the Watchtower. And that Banshee's just, or that Viking's just going across, but now he's going to get that Overlord, and then he's going to get that and that. Maybe it's to get that Overlord, because if he gets those two, then this one might fly away, so he's getting this one first, and then he's going to go back and get those. So he gets one additional Overlord. That's a good reason why. But then he makes a reactor there. He makes 2 more reactors there. He had 1 Rax that he built along with the reactor on the factory in those 2 depots. I'll pause it so I can point it out as soon as he gets back. Ah, damn it. As soon as he gets back to the main screen. Okay, motherfucker. He's so fast. Another interesting thing to note is that he also leaves a hole here, and he's not aware of it until even after Lings get into his 3rd base. He's not aware of it until his units actually go through the hole itself. So he's doing everything right. Okay, right there. So he built this Rax, those 2 depots, and the reactor on the factory while he was doing his Banshee harass. And this was a bare reactor, but instead Flash ends up making a reactor over here instead of, or he makes a barracks with a reactor over here, like the barracks itself, and then a reactor add-on on the barracks, instead of lifting the barracks off onto that reactor to get a little bit more efficiency. And the reason behind this is that Flash is doing a build that he has not done enough so that these kinds of things have been practiced and planned out ahead of time. It also confirms that this is not a build that he would normally be doing. This is much more closer to a freestyle version than a actual build that he's been practicing and preparing for a tournament. Just seeing small inconsistencies like that line up with his otherwise usually flawless play. We saw against Dongray Gu as well, though, in his GSL run on Catalina, I believe. It was like the 3rd game. as well. Lings just kept on running through his natural because he had a hole in his wall like that, and he didn't fix it right away, and it really it cost him the game when the Lings went in and did game-ending damage. He was behind, but it just kind of put the nail in the coffin. We see Flash macroing using that little bar over there. And now he's going to be moving out. And it's also interesting that so he is focused on macro right now up until the point he starts to stim his units and clear the creep. And one of the things that falls under macro is having all of your units consistently hotkeyed, or hotkeyed like all the time. And we saw a little bit earlier that he was hotkeying his units as soon as they were popping out of the barracks. And that's all because he was under the quote-unquote macro mode. That was a good move by him clearing creep like that, because his Banshees did a lot of damage, so that the Zerg was going to be behind by about, I believe Flash killed at least 10 drones, so that's about a production cycle worth of drones. So the Zerg's units are going to be a little bit later. Not late enough so that he's going to lose the game, but late enough so that Flash is able to clear creep spread like that and get away with it. That's why he steps so aggressively on creep. We see right there Flash's units just walking through, but Flash must have been looking at the minimap or something, and otherwise not have his attention focused on that little hole in the wall there. And we see there Flash just kind of like hotkeying some more units popping out of the barracks as well. And now he's going to do that multi-pronged attack using that Banshee to try to poke in. He is maxed right now, and that's when he is going to start his 4th command center, and now he just kind of accidentally clicked a bunch of buttons. You saw for a moment that blue color and then the minimap going away. But now he's going to be focused on the battle, and now's a good time to slow it down again too. So, let's do 0.5. 0.25 was a bit slow. Okay, so the battle that's happening right now. So Flash is on top of everything. He has his units pre-spread. He's clearing creep. He's walking on the creep with his units pre-spread. Everything is really great. He accidentally puts a Thor up. Then he has to go and try to while he's unloading the Thor, these units are crashing into his units, and he kind of reacts too late for these units to split. They just get blown up by banelings, and 0.25 or 0.5 was a bit fast, so let me just I think 0.25 is perfect actually to illustrate this kind of a mistake. And also just small other micro errors, not really the biggest of deals, but things that it's generally good to try to consciously do. So the thing that he does right here is good, splitting up these units like that and just having a few units in front to tank baneling hits. That is the proper move. The next move he does though is he's splitting his units some more, which is good. He's splitting those group of Marines. That's good. It could have been a potential baneling hit. One little mistake right there is moving that Marauder back with those Marines. It's generally good to have a Marauder up towards the front because the Zerg's going to want to kind of go past that. And also Marauders have 1 extra range, and they also help clear creep a lot easier as well because they do a little bit more damage but have less DPS. So the mistake that happens here is Flash accidentally misclicks his Thor into the medevac, and as a result he tries as fast as possible to get that Thor back on the ground, but while he's doing that, the Zerg player attacks him. So he's splitting his army, the Zerg player is attacking, he wants to click that Thor and get it back on the ground, but while he's doing that, all of these units get completely shit on by the banelings. And by the time he tries to start kiting, it's already too late, and he's already lost too much of a significant portion of his army to actually win the engagement. And the best he can do is trade cost efficiently with the rest of his units. And also, Flash doesn't use the all army hotkey either. If he did, he could have had these units in with the fight as well. He was just caught off guard. If he had a little bit more time to prepare, I'm sure he would have sent these units all the way over here, so that by the time that the fighting had started, he would have those units over there, and I'm sure the battle would have ended a lot differently had those units been there to help, because that was like one Thor and 10 Marines. That was about 20 supply worth of units of army that was not part of the fight, which is a big deal. Now though, Flash is in macro mode again. He's adding additional turrets, and this is when he really buckles down, and he really doesn't want to miss a beat with his macro. There's really no reason not to either, if you think about it, because there's nothing going on. Ugh, that hole, if only he fixed it. But it doesn't really matter this game. He's already kind of in a bad position. Oh. Here's another good part. Before I forget. It's hard to rewind. I wish there was like a 5-second rewind button too. But I'm just going to keep it on 0.25 because this is a very interesting action to see Flash do. It's when this army attacks into this army over here. Is that Flash sees the Zerg army, so he sees it right now on the minimap, and he immediately starts to split his units up as soon as he sees it on the minimap. And his screen is just completely still. He's not like spamming boxes everywhere and moving the screen all the places. Those SCVs just not going into the fight. And then now he moves it when he absolutely has to, when he has to get more room to micro his units backwards. But before that, he generally does not try to move his screen as much as possible, but he will if he has to. It's just that I think he prefers not to, because this is, by the looks of how small the mouse cursor is, it looks to be at least a 1920 1200 resolution, so 1610, which gives you a little bit more space horizontally, so you have a little bit more area to see over here and over here than if you were playing at a smaller resolution, actually. So that's why this view looks kind of different, but it's still the same. Like, it's a very small advantage, but it is an advantage nonetheless. And by having that, it means you don't necessarily have to move and scroll like up over there to get a little bit of additional space to micro your units. Fortunately, Flash is already behind. That one engagement set him back really far, so there's not really much you can do at this point except to try to turtle up, get to a 200, 3-3 army, and then take a good engagement and win and try to cut off the Zerg's reinforcements, because there's nothing he can really do at this point to stop the Zerg from taking a 5th base, and the Zerg player just has complete control of this game at this point. Now Flash is back in macro mode after that engagement has ended. He pre-splits his units. He sees that changeling. Boom. It's dead. His rally point does not change a lot either. His rally point only changes probably a couple times throughout this game. One of the main areas was over there as 3rd base, but now as he takes his 4th base, it becomes over here. And he's pre-spreading his units a little bit more. And, he's probably wondering how those Zerglings got in. This time, Flash is on top of things, and he doesn't have a Thor in his medevac being lazy, so he's able to kind of split his units a little bit better. And at the same time, while that fight's going on, well, I don't completely recommend it. I think it's more important to focus on the fight, because if more Banelings had come crashing in and Flash wasn't paying attention, he would have lost his entire army. But Flash chooses to try to get as many things done while the battle is taking place by transferring those SCVs from the natural to the 3rd. And now I believe Flash knows that he has a little spot open in his wall. Yep. Now he finally fixes it. Yay. This is a very big army though, and the Zerg player, if he can kill Flash's 4th base, which he does, then he's pretty much going to be able to win the game, because Flash needs that economy to mine out or to max out again, because he's pretty much mined out on the first 2 bases. Now at this point, Flash is back into macro mode. He is focused on producing units as fast as possible, getting his SCVs off gas, getting that minerals up and the gas down so that he can try to max out as fast as possible and then try to take a good 200-200 engagement. Notice how he is, again, he was just selecting some more units that popped out. Like, as soon as they pop out, he is selecting them. So that's just, he's just very on top of his macro at this in this time of the game because he is in his quote-unquote macro mode. Nor, of course, you wouldn't do something like that if you were fighting, like if you were in an engagement of some sort. But when there's nothing else to do, I guess why not do it? There we see him again, selecting his units as soon as they pop out of the barracks and having them hotkeyed to his 2 hotkey right there. And we just saw it right there, Flash quickly clicking his 4th base rather than using a location key because there was so much action going on, Flash never actually had a chance to hotkey this location. And as a result, he didn't have a hotkey to get to it immediately, and it cost him 2 turrets that were being built, and he wasn't able to cancel it because he had to click the minimap and then try to cancel it. So Flash is still able to max out at a reasonably good time, given his economic situation here. But this run by, very, very good play by the Zerg player. You really can't fault Flash at this point. You just have to kind of say, wow, this Zerg player is really, really good. Well, of course he's really, really good because he's a top 16 Zerg player on Korea. But this run by gives the Zerg player enough time not only to get Ultralisks out, but also frees up enough supply for the Ultralisks as well by sacrificing like 30 Zerglings like that. It allows you to get enough supply for the Ultralisks. And this gives the Zerg player enough time to remax on a better army to crush Flash's army with. Because as soon as this army dies by Flash, then he's just dead. This is Flash's last hope of winning the game. We see literally a million Banelings. There those units go. Again, they get stuck in the medevac, and Flash has to kind of like unload them during the battle, and as a result, the battle doesn't go as well as he'd hoped. But to be fair, that battle, again, Flash didn't have. That's probably closer to 30 supply worth of units right there because there's like 2 Hellbats, 3 Marauders right there, and then a Thor, and then 10 Marines, and then more units popping out. So that was probably another like 30 supply that wasn't actually in the battle. That could have made a pretty big difference. Flash, again, he's selecting and binding his units as soon as they come out of the barracks while he is pushing down across the map. And again, he's kind of at an awkward position, like right here. He's not really centered around his army. He's keeping track of what the Zerg player is doing based on the minimap. That's why he doesn't need to have his army centered on the center of the screen. Flash sent that drop when he was over here, and he like did it at the corner of the screen. And I'm pretty impressed that it actually went and it didn't like return or anything. That was very, very quick drop, and that was like, that's the kind of stuff you have to do to get back into this already lost game. This game's pretty over at this point because the Zerg has a 5th base and Flash barely has a 4th. Just way too much Zerg army, unfortunately. But that was a lot of Banelings, so Flash is kind of okay. Unfortunately, though, the Zerg is on 5 bases, so he's gonna have his Ultralisks. I thought he was gonna have his Ultralisks in that last fight, but this game goes on a little bit longer, And I don't want to like just cut the game off before it actually ends. I will keep it going until the very end, just to because we're more concerned about how Flash does his or how Flash spends his APM rather than what his strategy is and if he actually wins or loses the game or not. Ooh, that battle not going very well at all. I swear though, I thought there were Ultralisks in this game. That's very weird. I guess it is getting really late for me. But again, Flash, I just want to point out that Flash is selecting his units. It seems to be he seems to select his units a lot when there's, I guess, nothing else to do. So like you macro, you have your units building, you move your army somewhere, and then you kind of have some downtime, and he uses that downtime to select units coming out of the barracks, I guess. And to maybe do some like extra macro stuff, like right there he selected all of his SCVs and then he moved his command center because he knows he needs to take another base. He's kind of running really low on money. At least he fixed his depot wall. That's good. At this point, I guess Flash is still looking at the minimap a lot. I don't know. I don't want to like ramble on and say stuff I've already been saying. He's pretty much been doing the same actions for the past couple minutes. This is his macro cycle. It's moving his army, building units, grouping the units up into his main army that are popping off his barracks, and then taking control of his economy. And then he just keeps kind of like doing that over and over again. Like he moves his army right there against the Mutalisks, and then he has to move his SCVs, of course. That's something that you have to do. But then, loses that right there. And then that's another thing you have to do as well. But then he makes units, and then he has his units coming out of the barracks. And then he's just selecting his army again, and he's making more units. But at this point, he actually doesn't have any money to spend to make units. So he's only making like 5 Marines at a time, unfortunately. A very rest in peace rip situation. This 5th base is very, very exposed, and there's really no way that Flash can leave it without it getting completely wrecked by the Mutalisks. The Mutalisks have Flash's entire army pinned back, and this is just giving the Zerg millions of years to build whatever he wants, really. Oh, that Marauder definitely deserved to die. Now, Flash has pretty much had it. He's maxed out to as much as he could. He knows he can't defend that 5th base anymore, so he's going to try to go for one last good engagement. He at this point probably has like 30 SCVs, so this is what a normally maxed out army would be, and he's focused completely on this engagement right here. He kind of clumps his army up, and then he has to pre-split it again, and unfortunately that doesn't go really well for him. But there are also simply too many Marauders or too many Ultralisks and Banelings and not enough Marauders, and GG is called. Good game. There we go. But hopefully you guys were able to kind of learn a little bit more about how Flash plays, and that I was able to point out some cool stuff for you guys. Otherwise, a very straightforward game, and a little bit more of an in-depth look into the attention. I'm not going to say the mind of Flash, but more of kind of like a little bit more in depth of Flash's attention and what he's focused on throughout the game. And again, if you guys have any specific videos that you want me to make a video of, just leave a link and a question at the bottom, and I will get to it as soon as possible. I also started to kind of make some micro videos videos about control. I made one about Hellion control. If you guys have any questions about unit control in general, such as like defending your, or not defending, microing your workers against certain stuff, like maybe microing your workers against Reapers. I know I'm gonna do a video on that. TVT, TVP, or Reapers versus SCVs, Reapers versus probes, and Reapers versus Zergs. You have to micro them differently versus all different kinds of workers. So I'll do a video about that. But in general, any other kinds of micro situations, also leave a link. And if you could leave a video of it being done, or I don't know, maybe that's a bit too much. The hardest part about that is to actually find a video to illustrate the example of how to micro properly. So that's why I might not be able to get to it right away. But definitely leave a comment about that, and I'll keep it in the back of my head, and I will get to it as soon as possible. Alright, peace out, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video.